Last week, Senator Ted Cruz came in for a lot of criticism for leaving Texas for Cancun during that state's devastating power failures, which left millions of Texans literally freezing in their homes. Here's what he had to say for himself in the aftermath.
So the question from the video on the cell phone was whether the decision to go was tone deaf. Look, it was obviously a mistake, and in hindsight, I wouldn't have done it.
Without Donald Trump dominating the news cycle, politicians like Cruz and Andrew Cuomo are actually being left to publicly deal with the shame of their missteps. It's kind of fascinating. Democratic strategist Colin Rogero and our colleague, national political reporter at The Hill, Jonathan Easley, are back to share their thoughts. Colin, this is a very interesting dynamic to me, not just with Cruz, Cuomo, and more, but it seems like shame is an element that has come back to politics. Like, if it was Trump, he would have been like, yeah, well, Nancy Pelosi did this, and actually we own a beautiful Trump property in Cancun, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Trump, Cruz got back on a plane and appeared contrite, something we haven't seen in American politics for like 5 years. What do you think about that? Just like the return of that dynamic? I mean, how has Trump permanently changed things? What are your thoughts?
No, America has a conscience again. When you have the big bad bully that will not shut up, then, you kind of are always watching the shiny object or what new hand grenade he's going to throw into the populace. When that is not happening, then you do have to pay attention to the actual wrongs that are happening. And, Ted Cruz's misstep, I'm wondering who works with him that would think that was a good idea. I mean, you ain't going to Cancun. Get back at home and help people. I do want to say, though, amidst the sadness and ridiculousness of that, I have seen a wealth of people in Texas helping each other. And that was really, really encouraging to see. I've seen it all over social media with all friends that exist in Texas, and I applaud them for taking care of each other, and it's been really impressive to see.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Of course, they shouldn't have ever been left in this position, but it's always heartening to see the way that people step up for each other. Jonathan, what do you make of this? Because part of this is just the simple dynamic that the news media has less Trump bait to cover. There's less shiny objects just tossed in the news cycle every day. So when Cruz goes to Cancun, when there's new revelations about nursing homes in the state of New York and the cover up there, they can actually break through and get a little bit of coverage so that politicians are more likely to be held to account.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did open today talking about Trump. He still sort of looms over the political scene, but in some ways, these are sort of more traditional political scandals or controversies that might not have broken through before. Certainly, Ted Cruz, he admitted his judgment here was absolutely terrible. It is surprising that he was able to drive a day, 2 days of news cycle. In New York, I think Cuomo's issues are far more serious, and that's definitely a controversy than what we're talking about with Senator Cruz. But I don't know if it's refreshing or not to return to these sort of quote unquote normal political scandals. But
yeah, I kind of agree with you, John.
Feels very retro.
The Cuomo one is obviously more important. Colin, let me ask you about this, which is, the White House Press Secretary, Jen Psaki, she was on the air over the weekend, and she would not go after Senator Cruz whenever she would not go after Governor Cuomo and admit some of the failings there on the policy level. How do you think Democrats nationally should handle this issue?
That's a great question. Look, Republicans have a very impressive discipline that they fall in line behind each other and they toe the communication and party line very well. And Democrats historically have not been very good at that. So I think not attacking your own to start is probably a good political move generally. And so I think, look, they're just trying to function with some kind of discipline that normally dominates the Republican Party. Now, does that mean that Cuomo is going to be able to escape having to answer for these, kind of missteps and things that were done with nursing homes? Absolutely not. But Jen, again, is also trying to stay focused on the stuff that the Biden administration is trying to get through, which are big, big packages and big, big things they're trying to accomplish right now.
Mm-hmm. Colin, let me also ask you this one as the political strategist is Trump's strategy of just never showing contrition or demonstrating any embarrassment or shame, is that actually, put the morality of it aside, is that actually the right political strategy? Because it did seem like nothing ever stuck to this guy because he always just kept going, never said he's sorry, never showed any, even teeny tiny bit of regret. And it seemed to be a pretty effective political strategy for him ultimately.
Yeah, look, I think yes. Now, I think we also have to consider the kind of media environment the Republicans function in, where once he says a defense, that there are all of these mediums that will repeat it for him ad nauseum, and they benefit greatly from that. I think in some sense, yes, it's very helpful on day-to-day scandals. I think in the end, it was part of the reason why he lost. Not showing any empathy for people's family members who are dying of COVID and saying, hey, wait a minute, I miscalculated. I should have done this better, probably would have put him over the top in the election. So in the grand scheme of presidential winning, it was not a great move. On an individual basis, when he deals with scandals, yeah, it's fantastically effective. This is not a new theory, right? Deny, deflect is something that people have been working on for years and years and years. It's not a new strategy. He just seems to be very, very good at it.
Yeah. Interestingly, John, I mean, that's basically what Cuomo's tried to do in New York too.
Yeah, and I mean that has been a super effective way of handling scandals throughout the Trump era. Is just never admit that you were wrong in any way, and then allow your supporters or friendly media to amplify what you're saying. The only people that get in trouble are the ones that admit to having done something wrong. I mean, Cruz was kind of, I think, put in a position where he had to do that. I mean, it was just such an obvious and immediate miscalculation, while people in the state were still suffering, that he had to come back and show contrition and then, go out and do, I guess, what he could here to help people on the ground. But maybe we're in a new era where it just makes sense to never admit that you're wrong. And those seem to be the types of people that are rewarded on social media and by their bases.
True. Very true.
Very good point.
Great to see you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next on Rising, journalist Ted Jelani is going to join us to discuss Biden administration's take on discrimination case against Yale University. That's when Rising continues.